Hello friends, a very good evening. My name is Dhanunjay Reddy and today we are going to continue our discussion on power, the topic that we started 2 days before, right? So we'll be continuing with the topic that is called today management of power, and that is in management of power we'll be discussing the so-called balance of power. What is this called balancing of power and how it is balanced in international relations? So that is what we are going to look at today's discussion. Now before going into that discussion, let me make it very clear. So what is that topic that we are discussing? This is the 6th unit in PSIR paper 2 first section. In this sixth uh, topic, we have subtopics of national interest, security and power, balance of power and deterrence, transnational actors and collective security, and we have world capitalistic economy and globalization. So far what we have discussed, we have started with power in this, and we are discussing the various aspects of power. In that I said there will be very numerous aspects. In that, one aspect is balance of power and one more aspect is collective security. These two comes in management of power, right? This I said in my last class. So this is the 6th unit and we are discussing this. We'll try to complete in this week this 6th chapter, and then we'll move immediately to the next chapter because we are getting late, right? So power. Now what are the topics in power that I dealt? Whatever I dealt are: one is the concept of power, elements of power, determinants of power. We have discussed this in my previous first two lectures of power. Measurement of power, polarity thesis I discussed on Saturday. I have also discussed this types of power, right? You do remember types of power of Joseph Nye, soft power of Joseph Nye, hard power, soft power, sharp power. Then there is a smart power. Then there is one more power called fast power. And then today we will be discussing about management of power. In management of power, we have two concepts, that is called balance of power and collective security. Now, before going into management of power, why power has to be managed as such? See, I said in my first lecture about when I was telling about power, power is the most contested topic. It is the central topic in international politics because around power, the entire politics of international relations is going to revolve. Why? Because various theories in their analysis, they say that the main reason for war is the amount of power that countries possess, right? So I said power is the central theme. I also discussed that whenever we are studying about theories of international relations, every theory is concerned about only one thing, that is to avoid war and to ensure peace. That is a basic idea. And to ensure peace, they have proposed different mechanisms, and through that mechanisms, we have had various schools of international politics, that is liberalism, realism, and then we have seen Marxism, and then we have also seen critical schools like feminist school, neo-Marxist school. We have seen postmodernist school, and we have also seen Frankfurt school, right? These are the schools that we have seen in international politics. All these deal with only one thing, that is to avoid war and to ensure peace for a longer period of time at the global level, right? I also said that international politics evolved only after the First World War. Remember all those things that I said, because everything will be related to the theories. From now on, everything will be related to theories. Now, why management of power? Management is necessary. Why management is necessary? Because if you are not managing power, then it is leading to war. War is because of mismanagement of power. Hence, all the theories agree that we have to manage power. How we manage, that differs from to school to school. Realists say you go for offensive realism or defensive realism, whereas liberals say you go for changing the world order, right, through liberal institutions. Marxists say you go for proletariat internationalism rather than going for capitalism. So these are the different schools which they have propounded. So this is about management of power. Why power has to be managed? Because if power is not managed, then automatically it leads to war. In order to avoid war, you have to manage power. And what are the techniques to manage power? Some say that balance of power is the best technique. Some say that balance of power doesn't work, collective security works. So these are the two theories which we are going to discuss. I hope the context is clear for you. Now let us move. Management of power. I said I have just written whatever I spoke up to now. Power in international politics has to be managed. The reason is mismanagement of power leads to instability, and this is the cause of war. Mismanagement of power is the cause of war. Hence, in order to ensure enduring peace, power should be managed. That is what I discussed. So, scholars of international politics has propounded two ways to manage power. What are those two ways? Realists say you go for balance of power, right? This is realist approach. Liberals say you go for collective security, right? That is what I have written. So far I think it is clear. Now look, what is balance of power? What is the meaning of balance of power? Now whenever there is a question on balance of power, you can start with this basic introduction that balance of power is one of the oldest concepts in international politics, right? International politics, this is one of the oldest. I'll tell you why it is oldest. It is so universal and transcendental that it has acquired the status of common sense. Balance of power is nothing but common sense. It is entirely based on common sense. So scholars say that it is universalistic principle, it is transcendental principle, and it is based on common sense. So there will be one scholar called David Hume who says that so long as common sense is relevant, balance of power will be relevant. So he says that the importance of balance of power will be relevant as long as common sense is relevant to human beings, which means balance of power will be transcendental across all the periods of space and time. That is what David Hume is telling. So this is what it is, the oldest concept in international politics. You can start in this way for your answer whenever you are writing balance of power. Balance of power is one of the oldest concepts of international politics. It is regarded as common sense. According to David Hume, so long as the common sense is relevant, balance of power will remain relevant. Now, why it is called the oldest concept of international politics? Because it is based on the Westphalian world order. Now remember my first lecture on international politics. I said Westphalian world order. I discussed everything about Westphalian world order, right? So balance of power is related to Westphalian world order. What is the central theme of this uh, balance of power? The central theme is no country should be allowed to gain power to such an extent that they threatens the security and survival of other country, right? Ensure that no country will become so powerful that it becomes a threat to other country security and territorially. So no country should be allowed to such an extent that other countries security and territorial integrity is mismatched, right, is disturbed. So this is called balance of power. Balance of power central theme is allow no country to have preponderance power. So you have to balance so that the countries will be at peace always. So this is the concept. So you are getting the point. So this is what they say. You can write this thing. It is based on Westphalian world order. I said in Westphalian world order, let me recap quickly about Westphalian world order. I said it was in the medieval Europe during the time of Rome. There used to be a critical fight between the kings and the religious leaders, saying that who has the ultimate power. This used to be the debate of the Roman Empire in the medieval times. However, in 1618, this led to a clash between the religious elements as well as the kings. It was after 30 years of war between 1618 to 1648 that at a place called Westphalia, Treaty of Westphalia was signed. As per this treaty, the rulers and the religious leaders came to an agreement saying that from now on the sovereignty, that is the supreme authority, lies with the state. Religion has no function in the affairs of state. So Westphalian world order is state centric world order. There is no authority which is internally or externally above the state. So state is sovereign. Sovereignty indicates sovereignty at internally and externally, which also means at the international level there is no other authority to judge the or to guide the state to be in this format. As a result, Westphalian world order will not have a common power at the helm of affairs like today's United Nations organization. As a result, states will be independent, states will be the sovereign authorities. So in that world system, the elements are states and they will have ultimate authority. During this ultimate authority, every state is sovereign. There exists multiple number of states, 4 to 5 states. For example, Britain, France, Italy, Russia, Austria, Hungary, Prussia. These were the states which have independence, and they used to exercise their power. They used to exercise their authority and sovereignty internally and externally. The moment they are exercising their authority internally and externally, definitely every country will be at a threat of other countries' expansion. Say for example, say Russia is considering itself as the preponderant power during that stage, and it will be expanding because as per this Westphalian world order, there is no state which is above the, there is no power which is above the state. So state thinks that it is the ultimate power and it can go on expanding. But whenever it expands, the other countries get feared because other countries also fear that, also other countries also has that sovereignty and territorial integrity, or they have their supremacy. So the moment state starts increasing power, then definitely one power goes on increase, one state goes on increasing its power, the other state follows the order and it starts go on building up power. So the Westphalian world order resembles the Hobbes nature of social Hobbes nature, Hobbes theory. Remember this Hobbes, right? I said Hobbes state of nature is like resembling in Westphalian world order, where power, countries will be gaining power, and then security in dilemma occurs, and then other powers will go on to expand more power, more power. So Westphalian world order is state centric. There is no authority, common authority. As a result, state will be in security dilemma. As a result, there will be a quest for power. Power, insecurity dilemma, power, insecurity dilemma. This will be the vicious cycle. As a result, in the Westphalian world order, there is Thomas Hobbes' principle of state of nature, where states will be ensuring power after power. They will be after power. So their ultimate aim is to expand power. So this is the Westphalian world order. In such a world order, these states are, this is monistic theory of international politics. Monistic means there is no other element above the state or below the state or over the state, which means state are the only actors in international politics. So remember, so this is what the Westphalian world order. From 1648, I said from 1618 to 1648, there was 30 years war. After 30 years war, in 1648, Treaty of Westphalia was signed. According to this treaty, the new world order or the old world order, Westphalian world order, was established. As per this Westphalian world order, what are the things? State is the sovereign authority. There is no power above the state or over the state. State has its sovereignty. As a result, it has to protect or it has to ensure its security and territorial integrity. As all other states will also be trying to ensure that security and territorial integrity, the only way they can ensure to have security and territorial integrity is through power. As a result, states will be always in a position to go for power after power, because the moment one state is acquiring power, the other state will be in insecurity dilemma. As a result, other power also goes for power. So this is the state of Westphalian world order. Power after power. State is the central, no common authority. Remember all these things. That is why I said theories are very important. Now, Westphalian world order. So we have to ensure why they will go for power, because for security dilemma, if you want security, then definitely ensure that the countries will not become preponderant power. The moment countries are becoming preponderant power, it is going to be dangerous for the other countries. So in Westphalian world order, the central theme of balance of power. So these countries always try to go for balancing the power, right? You are getting this point, power after power. So whatever the power is there, if one country is expanding its power, then other country has to ensure that this power is balanced. Say for example, there is Russia, there is Britain, there is Italy, there is France, there is Austria, there is Hungary. Now, if one power is expanding, say for example, France is expanding its power, it is going to create disturbance with the other power. As a result, it will become more and more powerful. The moment it is becoming powerful, other countries will fear because it will be ingressing into the domains of other country. So what the other countries try? They try to balance this power. How they try to balance this power? Either they go for expanding their power, right? Or they can go to form alliances to counter the growing power, right? Either by forming alliances, external alliances, or by building up internal capacities, they are going to have their power and they are going to maintain the balance. So the concept of balance of power is this. So it ensures that the central theme of the balance of power is that no country should be allowed to gain power to such an extent that it threatens the security and survival of the other nations. Understood? I think it is very clear now. Now, concept of BOP, I said the concept of BOP has been derived. How they have derived this? By understanding from 1648. This is what I said, from 1648 after the Treaty of Westphalia until First World War, that is the end of First World War 1919, the world order was Westphalian world order. Remember, after First World War 1919, Woodrow Wilson is the person who has come and who has talked about the so-called the new world order, right? This is where we discussed, this is what we discussed in our second lecture, right? I hope you have seen all those videos, so it will be very clear to you. So until this phase, this is called Westphalian world order. Now the concept has been derived on the basis of understanding on how European states, so how balance of power was conducted. I said until this phase in the Westphalian world order, the international politics is the politics of Europe, because USA, it didn't enter into world affairs because USA was having Monroe Doctrine, that we will discuss. What is this? I said Monroe Doctrine, or it will be having the policy of isolationism. It will not be entering into the world affairs, so it will be following isolation from the world affairs, USA, and the rest of the countries or colonies of Europe. So between 1618 or during the Westphalian world order, the world order was entirely regional, that is the politics of Europe is the politics of the world. It was not international politics as such, because all the countries are, all the rest of the countries are colonies. Isolation is in the policy of USA. So they have, scholars have studied the Westphalian world order, that is the power politics of European countries, and they understood how they are operating, and they gave this concept of balance of power. They understood that the European countries, what they are doing, they are trying to balance one country with the other, right? This is what I said, right? One country is becoming rich, then or one country is becoming powerful, then other countries are going to form alliances on counter the country which is going to become preponderant power. So they studied this from 1648 to 1919, or until 1949, you can say until 45, even until Second World War also this system continued, right? So they studied this and they realized that okay, world politics is operating in this way, that is called balance of power. So concept of balance of power has its roots in understanding the Westphalian world order, that is from 1648 to Second World War, you can say that, right? I hope the point is clear now. Concept of BOP. So the concept of BOP has been derived on the basis of understanding the how European states conducted their foreign policies, how they conducted their foreign policies, right? That is what the thing is. And then balance of power assumes something. What are those assumptions? I said balance of power, concept of balance of power is a Westphalian world order. Now remember the features of Westphalian world order. What is these features? The feature Westphalian world order is the world order of European politics. So it is relevant only in regional context. What is that region? Europe, because the rest of the countries, as I said, right, they were colonies, and USA is in isolation. So it is relevant only in regional context. Remember this. This is not operational at the global level, not at the global level, but at regional level. Say for example, North America is one region, South Asia is one region, Europe is one region. So balance of power operates at the regional level. One thing, be very clear. Balance of power operates in a multipolar world. What is multipolar world? We discussed when there are three or more powers should exist. Kenneth Walls' classification of polarities, right? So multipolar world, two or three powers should exist. European politics has three or more powers. I think you are getting the point. So we cannot operate it in a unipolar world, because in a unipolar world there will be only one power, and that will be the ultimate power or superpower. For superpower no one can match, because no one can challenge the superpower, right? It is also not used in bipolar world, because in bipolar world there is one concept called mutually assured destruction, that is nuclear deterrence. So for example, bipolar world, I said, what is this bipolar world? Post the Second World War, the world order was bipolar between two blocks, that is USA and USSR, right? They were superpowers and there is no power to challenge the superpower at that point of time. So when two superpowers also exist, balance of power cannot exist. So balance of power theorem, or the theory of balance of power, applies only in multipolar world. It applies only in regional context. It doesn't apply in unipolar world and bipolar world. In unipolar world, one power will be ultimate, there is no balance. In bipolar world, two countries exist, there is no balance, right? This is what the balance of power is. Next, what are the other features? It operates when there is no international actor. Westphalian world order system, right? In Westphalian world order there is no international system like United Nations or League of Nations. So it operates in a situation of anarchy. Why anarchy? No international organization. So anarchy compels the states. Why anarchy? Anarchy compels the states to acquire power. When states acquire power, it creates security dilemma. This is all we discussed. In anarchy, there is no international authority. Anarchy, security dilemma. The moment they are in security dilemma, state starts acquiring power, and then other states starts acquiring power. Then there will be power after power. So countries either has to increase their power, or they have to go for balancing the power, right? Acquire power, it means the states want to ensure that balance remains, so they have to ensure that balance remains. Otherwise, if one country, remember that first slide that I have shown, right? If one country is becoming preponderant power, then definitely the other countries are going to be out of the race. So they have to ensure balance. Other countries, they will be forming alliances, counter alliances, and they will be countering the power. So to preserve their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Anarchy, so anarchy is important, international law is important, multipolar world is important, Westphalian world order, it operates in regional context. So far we discussed these features, right? And then how states can ensure survival. Now this is how balance of power operates. I said balance of power is to ensure that states has to survive through territorial integrity and security, right? States can realize or can depend on two things. One is either it can depend on promises, it can depend on other countries outer outlook, saying that okay, these countries they make agreements, and in that agreement if one country says that we are not going to wage war with you, then definitely the countries can either depend on that promise, or it can depend on international organizations like the present world trade like the present system that exists. What is the present system? There is international organization called the Security Council, and states can depend on Security Council, right? So they can either depend on promises, or they can either depend on international laws and organizations if your country wants to ensure survival. This is the basic technique to ensure survival, right? Common sense says that, our common sense says that you cannot rely on promises, because in a state of anarchy you cannot trust other states. This is common sense, right? I said balance of power is common sense based. Why it is common sense based? It is common sense based because in international politics there is anarchy. The moment states are in anarchy, every country will be having its own way of dealing with the things. And if someone is promising that they won't attack, how are you trusting? What is the credibility in their promise? So common sense says that okay, though they are giving promise, you be ready with your idea, or you be ready to face war if they are going to face war. And international laws, so international laws can also be broken at point of time. So you cannot depend on international law. So you cannot trust states. The reason is there is no trust in anarchy. At the moment the states are in anarchy, which means there is no universal laws and there is no guarantee that the states are not going to attack you. So you be ready, because there is trust deficient. So we cannot trust on the states. In such a situation, common sense says that you have to go for balance of power, and you should ensure that balance of power sustains. ensure that by forming either alliances or by forming counter alliances, you ensure that the world order is not changing. You are ensuring balance. Otherwise, one country will become preponderant power and it will destroy your country. So this is what the common sense says, and this is what we have to do, right? So these two things won't work to ensure your survival. What works? It works. Balance of power is the only thing which can ensure your survival. Ensure that BOP sustains in international order. I think you are getting the point. What happens if balance is disturbed? What happens if the balance is disturbed, right? Strong states will attack the weak state. Ultimately, that is going to the thing. Matsya Nyaya of Kautilya. You remember that, right? Kautilya said that it will be a Jangal Raj. In Jangal Raj, the countries who have ultimate power uh, will be destroying the other countries, right? Strong states will be attacking the weak states, and weaker states' survival will be threatened. So this shows that it is imperative for nations, it is very vital for the nations to ensure that balance is the only way to preserve their survival in a state of anarchy. What I am telling, again I am repeating the same thing in the slides. It shows that if you want to survive, go for balance. Go for ensuring that balance of power sustains. That power is a dynamic, again one more aspect. Power is a dynamic concept, right? Power is dynamic because the moment one country starts acquiring power, the other country starts acquiring more power. By looking at the other country starts acquiring more power. So power is not a static concept, it will be dynamic concept. As power is a dynamic concept, balance of power also will be a dynamic concept, right? Power is a dynamic concept, balance of power continuously gets increased by the states. It means a country has to keep balancing again and again, right? Today, Britain may be trying to become powerful, so Russia, Prussia, these countries become together and counter Britain. But tomorrow, if Russia is becoming powerful, then Prussia and Britain becomes alliances and they go together, right? This is what they do. So, as power is an evolving concept, in the state of anarchy, you cannot trust anyone. As a result, balance of power is a very dynamic topic, which is balancing will be done, again rebalancing will be done. You understood what is rebalancing? Forming alliances to counter one thing, and if in your batch one is becoming powerful, you leave the batch and go with the other person and balance this fellow. This is what we do, right? What happens in balance of power is maintained. So one more feature of balance of power is it is a dynamic concept. BOP is keep on changing. That is one thing that you have to remember. And again, one more feature is, see, I am telling about the features of balance of power. What are the features that I said so far? Balance of power. What are the features? The first feature is it is an Westphalian world order. As it is Westphalian world order, state, it will be state centric. It operates in the state of anarchy. There is no universal actor, and then when there is no universal actor, it has to be in a multipolar world. Then it has to be a multipolar world, and then they said, I said it is a this one, what I said, it is an evolving topic or it is dynamic topic. And then seventh one, it is defensive realism technique, right? I discussed what is defensive realism. See, these are the things that I discussed. It is a regional context, it operates in multipolar world. Unipolar world, it doesn't operate. This is opposite, right, of these two. So 1 2 here. Third point is no international system, which means it operates in anarchy. So anarchy compels. Why anarchy? Again explanation. So 4, and then 5, it is a dynamic concept. So it is an evolving concept. Again, sixth point, what I said. Balance of power is a concept of defensive realism, right? This is one more topic or one more point that we can have. Right? Balance of power is a concept of defensive realism. Remember, in realism, I said there are two schools. One is classical realism of Hans J. Margento and the neo-realism. In neo-realism, there are two sub-schools. One is the offensive realism, and the second one is defensive realism. I discussed the defensive realism of Kenneth Walls. Kenneth Walls says that he also agrees that states are an anarchy, hence state has to have security. So states will always think about security maximization, hence power is important. And Hans J. Morgenthau says that power is the means to ensure security, but offensive realists say that power is the means and power is the end. Remember all these things, right? Now, balance of power. When I was discussing Kenneth Walls, I said Kenneth Walls clearly said that states has to acquire how much power? That amount of power which can ensure its security. It should not go for preponderant power. If it goes for preponderant power, it is going to be counterproductive, because the other states are going to form the counter alliances and they are going to wage a war. So never, states should never go for hegemonic power or preponderance power. It should have minimum power to ensure balancing. As such, the concept of balance of power is a defensive realist concept. I think you should be remembering all this. If you have watched my videos, you will be remembering. That is the reason I said theories are very important. So concept of defensive realism, balance of power, is because it is related to security dilemma. Again, the same thing. Concept of security dilemma shows that nations are security maximizers. Remember Kenneth Walls. Kenneth Walls said states are security maximizers. As a result, power is the means, security is the end. But according to John Mearsheimer and Hans J. Morgenthau, power is the means and power is the end for them. But for this Kenneth Walls, power is the means and security is the end. Remember, security maximizers. So it is the concept of, so what he says, go for balancing. On the other side, offensive realism believes that states has to have hegemonic power, not balancing. So if they ask, balancing is defensive realism, not offensive realism. BOP is defensive realism. Why? Remember all these things that I said. So this is one more feature. What are the features I said? The first feature is it has to operate in regional context. Second thing, Westphalian world order. As it is Westphalian world order, state-centric, multipolar world, and then regional context. And then I discussed it is depend on power. Then what I said, it is a defensive realism mechanism, right? It is a dynamic concept. So far I discussed these things. Features, we are discussing features. And I discussed about Kenneth Walls' defensive realism. I have given here again. For sovereignty and territorial integrity, it is essential that balance remains. That is what Kenneth Walls proposed. However, every country would like to increase their power because they are not sure that at what point of time the other country strikes you. Each country will ensure that balance remains. It means no country is allowed to gain preponderance power. Every country ensures that balance remains. Balance has to remain. This is the ultimate objective of state as per the Kenneth Walls. Because if one country is becoming preponderant power or a sovereign power, obviously the survival of others will be under threat. So the ultimate aim of the states will be balancing as per Kenneth Walls. So this concept is related to defensive realism of Kenneth Walls. One country aims to gain the power, right? One country aims to gain power, others will come together and punish that to ensure that balance of power. This theory of balance of power is suggested that power can be managed only by power. Now, how you are managing power? Only through power. So, what can I say? In short, remember again all things of what I am saying. I am repeating for clarity. I said balance of power is a Westphalian world order. What is Westphalian world order? 1648 to Second World War. This is almost the Westphalian world order or First World War. You can think still after First World War, because failure of League of Nations led to balance of power to continue till Second World War. So this is the first thing. So 1648 to Second World War. So this is what the first thing is. This is Westphalian world order. I said in Westphalian world order, states will be ultimate authorities. There is no power beyond the state or over the state. Say for example, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Austria, Hungary, Prussia, Russia. So Westphalian world order, I said the world order is of the order of European countries, because America was not present at that point of time. European power. So politics of international relations is nothing but politics of all these countries, because USA is in policy of isolationism. Remember again, isolationism. The rest of the countries are the colonies, right? colonies of these Western powers. So whatever the things that we are discussing in Westphalian world order, that will be related to these countries. As I said, Westphalian world order, states are sovereign authorities. So there is no power above the state or over the state. So sovereignty means it has internal sovereignty, external sovereignty. So they have to ensure two things, every sovereign power. What are those two things? They have to ensure their security and they have to ensure their territorial integrity, right? These are the ultimate goals of every state. Now, as there is no power above the state or over the state, there is no concept of uh, common authority or universal authority or supranational authority like the UN. No common authority. States are individual actors. So there is, as there is no common authority, there will be in the state of anarchy. The moment they are in the state of anarchy, they will be in security dilemma, because no country, because every country will be in security dilemma. Because why in security dilemma? No one knows when the other country is going to cause threat to this security and territorial integrity of their country. As a result, what states do? States resort to the technique called increasing their power, right? This is what states do. Every country starts increasing their power, right? How much power they want? They want their power to secure both. The moment they are increasing their power, one country after other country, then definitely the thing is that they are going to intrude into the other country's domain, right? The moment they are increasing to such an extent that they are going to challenge other powers, what the other countries has to do? They have to ensure that, they have to ensure that, or they have to ensure or minimize the power of this country which is expanding. So what they do, as this country's power is expanding and it is trying to intrude into others powers, what they do, they come together and they form an alliance, or together they form alliance and they are going to counter this power, right? The moment they have countered, how they counter? Through war. By waging war, they are going to reduce this power. The moment they are going to reduce, there is chance for another country to grow. Then obviously, if another country is growing, what the other countries do, say for example, if this country is growing, after that the other countries will form alliance and then they counter this. So alliances and counter alliance, this is dynamic topic. Alliances, this is balance of power is dynamic. So alliances and counter alliances will be formed. So this is how they are going to challenge each other. This is what I discussed so far. I think it is very clear. Balance of power is very clear so far. How they are balancing? Balance of power. Power they are balancing. Through balancing of power, they are ensuring peace, managing peace. That is why this topic is related to management of power, right? European countries, Europe in 1648 to 1945 until the end of Second World War, their foreign policies were aimed at seeking a balance of power. Britain excelled in this operation, a balance of power. Britain kept on balancing and it elevated balance of power to the state of fine arts. Britain got balancing of power to such an extent that it is able to control everything. If you look at Britain's foreign policy, Britain's foreign policy was excelled to such an extent that all its scholars were very fine in knowing the so-called balance of power issues, right? This is what the thing is. I hope you got the point, what I mean, right? Next, key motivation. What are the British foreign policies key motivation? Their motivation is again the same thing, ensure that no power is going to become preponderant so that it will challenge the your power. So that is the thing. So to ensure that no European power becomes preponderant, Britain continued to play the role of balancer. It is used to play the role of balancer. How? Through divide and rule policies, making secret alliances in international politics, because it makes secret pacts, because it knew that in international politics there is no authority which is ultimate. That is, there are no ultimate friends or no ultimate enemies in international politics. So it maintained secret pacts, it entered into secret pacts, it maintained divide and rule policies. So Britain has excelled in operating balance of power, such that it has made balance of power to operate in fine, like a fine arts. Just compare this like India. What is fine arts? Classical music, classical dances like Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi in India are fine arts. But for these people, the fine arts is balancing in international relations. So that is what the concept is. So example, how they formed alliances and how they formed counter alliances. If you look at this, when Napoleon tried to establish its hegemony. When Napoleon tried to establish its hegemony, then Britain joined Russia and Prussia. So Britain joined with Russia and Prussia to control France, because at that point of time French was under the control of Napoleon, who tried to establish his preponderant power. Now, this is what the thing is. Now, when Germany tried during the Second World War, Hitler tried to become ultimate or preponderant power. During this time, what this person did, when Germany tried to establish its preponderant power, definitely Britain, what they did, it has joined hands with Russia and France to control Germany. Now, at one point of time, it has fought against France. At the second point of time, it is fighting against Germany by joining hands with France, which means there is no permanent friends and no permanent enemies in international relations. I think you are getting the point which I am speaking about. Now, Britain mastered in balance of power. So how balance of power evolved? Balance of power evolved through a treaty called Utrecht Treaty. Just remember this name, it is more than enough. So balance of power was under, it has evolved through Utrecht Treaty. It was a medieval Indian treaty, medieval European treaty. So Congress of Vienna in 1815, Prince Metternich, there was one person called Prince Metternich. In 1815, they have made an attempt to formalize the concept of balance of power. So they formalized it, and ultimately from 1815 to ultimately at least up to 1919, this consent of Europe was consent of Europe. They signed this agreement called Consent of Europe and the Treaty of Utrecht, and they continued balance of power. Why they continued? Because through this treaty they ensured that no country is becoming preponderant power. I think you are getting the point. The biggest failure, however, of balance of power is the First World War, because in First World War no European country could balance the preponderant power. So which means clearly balance of power was a failure. Now remember Woodrow Wilson's statement. Woodrow Wilson said new world order is essential, because the old world order, that is the Westphalian world order, was failed. So you should have the new world order, right? So balance of power was failed because the First World War has taken place. What these countries, how they are managing? Why war has taken place? Because they failed to manage the power. So First World War shows that balance of power. I said balance of power is a technique to manage power, right? Manage power. So the moment your balance of power is not managing power, dismanagement or mismanagement led to war. So balance of power is a failed concept. So the criticism against balance of power started in the First World War. However, after the First World War, Woodrow Wilson calls for League of Nations, but League of Nations again fails, because League of Nations is a collective security term. It again fails because it results within just 20 years. That is, in 1919, First World War ends. In 1939, Second World War starts. Because within these 20 years, whatever Woodrow Wilson proposed, that is League of Nations, failed to establish peace. As a result, collective security is failed. So balance of power maintained its sustenance. That is what I can say. The biggest failure of balance of power was First World War, because it couldn't ensure balance. So the destruction in the First World War made people to realize about or to think about alternative to balance of power. So balance of power has failed in managing power. So there has to be other means to manage the power. So the scholars started thinking about an alternative to balance of power. Otherwise, they thought that balance of power is going to be ultimate and it is going to be forever. There was no other course of no other discourses or debates on how to manage power. They thought that balance of power is the ultimate thing. It will be remembering forever, or it will be remaining forever in the globe. So that was what the thing is. So what I discussed it so far, I discussed what are the features, what is balance of power, what are the features of balance of power, right? And then I said a brief idea about European politics and what is the first major drawback of balance of power and when it emerged, right? Now, what are the types of balancing a country does? How can country balance other country? As per Kenneth Walls, because balance of power is defensive realism, country can go for internal balancing and external balancing. How internal balancing? It can become economic and military power. That is one thing. You become powerful internally so that you can balance the other power. Otherwise, you go and form alliances and counter alliances externally. If you are not in a position to counter, say for example, let me tell you an example. Now, Australia is, sorry, US is there. Consider this. USA, USA is hegemonic power which has ultimate power. Consider other states. China is there. China is trying to grow internally through its military and economic power to reach USA's hegemony or to replace USA's hegemony. Now there is one more point. There is one more player in this. Who is that? India. However, India's position now, as China is growing, India has to counter China, right? How it can counter? Either through its economic power or military power, India. But India's economic power and military power is no match to that of Chinese. So they have to, they can go up to some extent with their economic and power. So whatever the gap that is there, they have to go for external balancing. How? External balancing, they can go for external balancing or to fill up this gap to counter China. How they can go? Through an alliance called QUAD, Quad. So what is this Quad? Strategic alliance. Why? This is external balancing of India. I think this is clear. So internal balancing, if you want to counter a country, go for internal balancing, or if that internal balancing is not sufficient, go for forming alliances and counter balances. If you are not going, or if you are not doing anything, that is internally if you are not doing or externally if you are not doing, then what is the thing? Other country is going to attack you. China is going to attack you if you are going, if you are sleeping forever, right? So types of balancing, I said it can go for internal balancing or external balancing. If you don't go for balancing, other countries will attack you. For example, this was what it happened during 1962 war. Let me tell you, the war between India and China. This is because of not maintaining balance of power. India neglected to maintain, or India left it scheme called balancing, and it thought ideally. So China attacked us. For example, India and China. During the Cold War, Nehru followed a theorem called exceptionalism. What is this exceptionalism? Unlike joining USA or USSR, any bloc, Nehru came out with non-alignment policy, right? Now this kept external balancing. One is, if you are not, what do you mean by, if you want external balancing, you have to be aligned with either one of the bloc, right? That is one thing. You kept NAM, so there is no external balancing. And China, it is becoming, or it is very close to USSR at that point of time. So China was growing internally and it is growing externally. As a result, Nehru started appeasement policy. What is this appeasement policy? Panchashil agreement. Now remember, why this is appeasement? He thought that China will not enter if he makes an agreement in the international relations. I said in international relations, this is an ideal way, thinking that no country will attack our country in anarchical state if I am going to enter into agreements. So he entered into appeasement through the policy of Panchashil rather than balancing. He didn't went to balancing. So he also believed in collective security of United Nations, right? He believed these two organizations. He was a very liberal person, very idealistic person. He believed that, okay, agreements will work in the international politics, collective security like institutions like United Nations will really work and they can help us whenever the time comes. And so he followed the theorem called non-alignment policy. As a result, what happened? In 1962, China attacked India. There was no help from any of the powers. As we are not doing external balancing, there is no help. And what about the collective security organizations? They failed to help us. as a result, we paid a huge price in the form of territorial integrity. That is, we lost Akshay Chin area to China. So this was the biggest loss. If you are not going for balance of power, and if you are realizing on if you are realizing on collective security organizations, or if you are realizing on your treaties, then it is going to fail. So what is the ultimate goal? You go for balancing. So there were two thinkers like Shyam Sharan and Shiva Shankar Menon. So Shyam Sharan and Shiva Shankar Menon, remember these names. We'll be speaking about these guys again and again. Shyam Sharan and Shiva Shankar Menon. They have clearly stated that China never allow India to remain non-aligned, because it will always, if it is non-aligned, then it will attack. So there is no other option for India rather than, it is a political imperative for India to seek external balancing. China will not allow us to go for non-alignment. No, because whenever you are in a country or whenever you are in a neighborhood like China, either you should have your own preponderant power like military power and economic power. If you are not having that preponderant power to counter China, definitely you have to enter into agreements with other countries. So what are those agreements? External alliances. What are those external alliances? Quad is very imperative for us, right? This is what they say. So how they maintain techniques of balance of power? So I just discussed so far types of balancing, how a country can balance, right? So you are understanding the points that I am discussing. Then techniques of balance of power. What are the techniques? The common technique is war, because if one country is becoming ultimate power, then other countries form together and then they wage a war on the country and they are going to maintain balance. So the main or the chief component or the common technique is war. By waging a war, they reduce the preponderant power. Or by partitioning. What is this partitioning? Like say for example, if France is becoming heavy after the war, what they do, they divide France into many countries and they take every country so that power will be reduced. So partitioning, or going for arms race, internal balancing, right? Or disarmament, right? Disarmament means, armaments means arms increasing, disarmament is arms decreasing, right? Either they will go for diplomacy, secret pacts, secret alliances, right? Establishment of buffer states, so that the other state will not attack us. For example, Poland became buffer state between Russia and Prussia. So this country, the moment they are attacking this country, other countries will act as a balance, act as together and they balance, right? So techniques of balance of power is, the common technique is war. The other techniques are partitioning, go for armaments, go for disarmaments, go for diplomacy, establish buffer states. So these are the things that they have. Now we are going to see, the next point is how far balance of power is relevant in today's world, or after the Second World War, how far balance of power is relevant. So the relevance of balance of power has been a question time and again since Second World War, because the first prominent critique of balance of power was Woodrow Wilson after the First World War. He said that balance of power failed to establish peace, so we should look at other alternative. So we have to go for collective security. That was the theme of Woodrow Wilson, and that is the first point where balance of power was challenged, right? So from there on, balance of power established. What he said, balance of power is a war prone thing. Why it is war prone? Because balance of power depends on war as a major phenomena. The technique of balance of power is waging war. Now the moment your technique is war, how can you avoid war, right? So he criticized that because of this war, because it is going for armaments, because it is going for secret pacts, definitely there is heavy chances for war. The moment you are going to war, then peace is disturbed. So Woodrow Wilson said is balance of power is going to be a failure, or it is failed. So they said arms race, secret alliances were a technique to ensure war. So balance of power is not relevant today. So we go for new world order. That was a concept which was given by Woodrow Wilson. So criticisms of balance of power. One is Woodrow Wilson criticism. Woodrow Wilson still said that it can prevent local wars, but it leads to world wars. It may not create problem internally, it creates problem externally. Say for example, if France and Germany, if France is increasing its power, it may stop the local war with Germany. But the other countries are going to unite, and a war which has to be a local war between France and Germany, it is going to be a global war, because all the other countries are forming together and they are going to wage war. Now, a war which has to be a local war between two countries, by forming alliances, you are making that war to be a global war. Now, what is the use of this? So he says that it is like giving vaccination against measles, but you are causing plague because of this vaccination, right? Remember this COVID-19. You are treating or giving steroids against COVID-19, but black fungus is again becoming a threat. So it is like balance of power is like inoculating against measles. You are giving vaccine. Inoculation means vaccination. Inoculation against vaccine or inoculations against measles, but it is leading to plague. So this was the best criticism of Woodrow Wilson. Nehru also criticized balance of power because Nehru is an idealist. I said he supported collective security. Why he opposed balance of power? He said that balance of power gives only nervous state of peace. It will not give calm peace. It will be a nervous state of peace. We will not know when war is going to occur. So as per Nehru, balance of power is nervous state of peace because there are so many weapons are present. When there are this many powers or this many weapons, no one will be sure of their peace. So it is under constant threat of war. Shadow of war is always on us because of the arms race and alliances. So critics of balance of power, you can write Woodrow Wilson and Jawaharlal Nehru. Woodrow Wilson concept of inoculation against measles and leading to plague, and Jawaharlal Nehru concept, you can go through this concept of shadow of nervous state of peace or shadow of war always exists. So these two are the criticisms. No, the balance of power crisis. So the crisis has started on a number of occasions. What is the first time balance of power started losing its importance? After the First World War, due to persons like Woodrow Wilson, right? This is the first time balance of power was challenged. However, balance of power could sustain up to Second World War because even though League of Nations was proposed by America, still the old European powers, they were very reluctant to come to collective security, and they were very reluctant to form coalitions to ensure peace. So still until Second World War, it ensured that it is continued. So however, the second one is it is replaced by collective security post to the Second World War, right? The third time is balance of power replaced by nuclear deterrence after the Second World War. So First World War is one reason, the second one war is League of Nations and United Nations, the third one is nuclear deterrence. Nuclear deterrence has emerged, or the concept of nuclear weapons emerged after the Second World War. The moment there is nuclear power, automatically balance of power became relevant. We will see what is the relation between balance of power and nuclear weapons, right? After the Second World War, the ideal conditions for operation of balance of power ceased to exist. As a result, balance of power is, to some extent, it is irrelevant at the global order. You understood? After the I am discussing what is the relevance of balance of power after the post Second World War, and I said the criticisms of Woodrow Wilson, Jawaharlal Nehru, and balance of power crisis. It faced three crises. It couldn't stop First World War. It couldn't ensure collective security. It couldn't ensure peace. So collective security challenged it. And after Second World War, nuclear weapons challenged balance of power. In the next class, I will be dealing how nuclear weapons are going to challenge the balance of power as such. And after the Second World War, the ideal conditions for balance of power ceased to operate. What are those ideal conditions? Remember, the ideal conditions are it operates only in the regional context. Again, the same points. It is a Westphalian world order, state-centric. And what are those? It should be a multipolar world, right? These are the things. One is it has to be regional context. It is a state of anarchy. It has to have multipolar world. But after Second World War, all these things has lost. So we look at what are those ideal conditions which fail. You must be quite sure about ideal conditions because I said what are the features of balance of power. Those are the ideal conditions. Balance of assumptions of balance of power. Balance of power operates only when there is multipolarity, when there is anarchy, when there is no ultimate authority, when there are conventional weapons to fight, and then the ideal situation is it has to have regional context. It cannot operate at the global level, right? This is what the mean is. If you are going at the global level, then war is the thing. Remember Woodrow Wilson statement. So this is the thing. In the next class, I am going to say how nuclear deterrence or the rise of nuclear weapons after the Second World War has made balance of power redundant, and we will be discussing what are those conditions which led to the decline of balance of power post Second World War and which led to the emergence of collective security. So friends, this is a thing that is what for today's discussion. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. Tomorrow we are continuing with the same topic, that is the balance of power. How far is it relevant after the Second World War, and how far is it relevant after the Cold War? There are two things: how far it is relevant after the Second World War, how far it is relevant to the Cold War, and how nuclear weapons has damaged or has created dent in balance of power, and what are those conditions which led to the fall of balance of power after the Second World War. So these are the things that we are going to discuss. Again, I am telling you, our Telegram group is dismantled because of some reasons. It got crashed. We established one more Telegram group that is called Dhanu @Dhanu PSIR. You can type it, you can join it, or this is the link that you can join. We will be providing these two things in the link of our YouTube description also. You can just go on subscribe, or you can just join this, because I am uploading all the notes related to my topics in these Telegram groups. So you can just join that and have an access to the uh, to this notes whatever I was discussing. So friends, this is the thing that I wanted to tell you. So this is what the balance of power. Balance of power is not yet completed. Think that this is the first part. Second part I will be continuing with tomorrow. But remember whatever we have read. Concept of power. In management of power, we are reading balance of power. There is one more topic called collective security. Failure of balance of power led to collective security. Management of power. How management of power can be done. Balance of power, I said introduction, how we have to write. So why balance of power emerged? Because it was in Westphalian world order. So these are the basic assumptions, are the ideal conditions that I was speaking. Right? What are those basic assumptions or the ideal conditions that I was speaking? It is based on Westphalian world order, regional context, operates in multipolar world. It doesn't operate in unipolar world and bipolar world. Then there should be no international actor. It has to be a state of anarchy. Remember all this, right? Next, what I said, it is a defensive realism. So these are the concepts. These are the ideal conditions. After the Second World War, all these ideal conditions got disturbed. New world order emerged. Regional context. International politics is no more regional after the Second World War, right? Multipolarity, it turned into bipolarity after the Second World War. So these are the reasons why it becomes redundant after the World War II. So this is what I discussed. What are the ideal conditions for balance of power, right? Next, what we discussed it belongs to defensive realist school, and then I said what are the basic assumptions of defensive realist school, and I said what is the basic policies of British, and how a country does balancing, internal balancing and external balancing, and what are the techniques. Remember this, these are the common techniques, as the technique itself has war, you cannot avoid war. So these are the things. Next, we started discussing about balance of power in 21st century. With some criticisms I have started, I am going to deal with how far after the Second World War balance of power is relevant, first thing, and how far balance of power is relevant in the Second World War. So I am going to discuss those things in my next class. So you can subscribe to our Telegram channel, and you can have an access to our notes. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Let us meet very soon with the next class. Have a nice day.